Our next example of non-Mendelian inheritance actually doesn't have to do anything at all with nuclear DNA. Instead, we're going to talk about inheritance of mitochondrial DNA, and we're also going to talk about inheritance of DNA that's found in the chloroplast. So let's first just discuss mitochondrial DNA and why I know that you inherited your mitochondrial DNA from your mother and not your father. So I have an image of gametes up, and notice how teeny and tiny these little sperm cells are. They're super, super small compared to this big egg cell gamete right here. So there's a huge difference in the size of an egg cell compared to the size of a sperm cell. So there's lots of cytoplasm and organelles in an egg cell that a sperm cell does not have. So if we look more closely at a sperm cell, notice that the vast majority of that sperm cell is just DNA. So all of this head is DNA with an enzyme-rich cap right here. It does have some enzymes to start breaking down some of the outer layers of the egg to actually fertilize it. But other than those enzymes, it's pretty much DNA. And then notice behind the head of the sperm cell, here is the mid piece right here, and there's mitochondria there, because we do know that this sperm cell needs the mitochondria to make ATP so that we can have microtubules flex, and we can have the flagella go back and forth so that the sperm cell can swim toward the egg cell. So here's mitochondria. We know mitochondria have DNA. We know also that this huge egg cell has plenty of mitochondria, many more than the sperm cell has. So I said that I knew that your mitochondrial DNA was inherited from your mother, and the reason why I know that is because when we look and see how a sperm cell fertilizes an egg cell, notice here that we have some of these hydrolytic enzymes right here breaking down these outer layers of the egg cell to try to break through all of this zone in order to get to the cell membrane. And then finally, when this first sperm cell breaks through some of this, we notice that the sperm cell nucleus, that is the only thing that is entering the egg. And here's that mid piece right there with all the mitochondria, and it never enters the egg cell. So that does not enter the egg. So all of the mitochondria that you receive, because now we have an egg cell that's been fertilized, so it's a zygote now, and if that develops, it's going to turn into a fully formed organism, but that zygote, all of its mitochondria come from the mother. So when we're looking at non-nuclear inheritance, we know that in mammals we have mitochondria. Those mitochondria have DNA. So when we're looking for ancestry reports, like when I did my 23andMe ancestry report, it looked at my maternal lineage. So we know mitochondrial DNA is inherited only from the mother. So everyone's mitochondrial DNA, that allows us to determine our maternal lineage. If you are male and you go to 23andMe, they'll look at your paternal lineage by looking at your Y chromosome, because only males can pass on a Y chromosome. I cannot find my paternal lineage because I do not have a Y chromosome. I can only look at my maternal lineage because of the mitochondrial DNA. If I wanted to know my paternal lineage through 23andMe, I would need to have my brother or my father go through and get that done by looking at their X chromosome. So let's look at a pedigree here, and notice here that we have the key. We have females that are unaffected, females that are unaffected are not colored in. Females that are affected are circles and darkened. Males that are unaffected are unshaded squares, and then the dark colored squares are the affected males. So when we look at this pedigree, this is an example of mitochondrial inheritance. And one of the keys here is that unaffected affected males right here can never pass on that gene to their offspring because they do not pass on mitochondrial DNA. However, an affected female will pass on her mitochondria to each and every offspring that she has. So notice here, males never pass on mitochondrial DNA, but females always do. So it always follows female lineage. So when we're going to look at other organisms that aren't mammals, so we're going to look at plants. Remember that pollen is formed here on an anther. Pollen is the equivalent of sperm. It is a smaller gamete. And then down here at the base of that flower, we have the ovule. And here's where the ovum or the eggs would be formed here. So pollen will come up here, go on the stigma, travel down, and it'll fertilize the eggs in the ovum. What is important that you know is that plants have both mitochondria and they have chloroplast DNA in their ovule. So if we're looking for genetic inheritance patterns and non-nuclear DNA, and we're talking about plants, you cannot forget that plants have both mitochondrial DNA and they have chloroplast DNA as well. And those are both determined by the type of DNA that is in the egg cell or the ovum.